As Alex mentioned, I'm Emily. I'm a solutions engineer at Algolia, and I'm here to talk about how SCs can shorten the sales cycle, best practices, implementation, and integration, which is a real big mouthful for basically some lessons I've learned on the ground. So just before I get started, just a little tiny bit about Algolia. Our tagline is we're a hosted search as a service. Basically, we make it really easy for you to build a Google-like search experience on your website. We power search for loads of different folks. Got some logos up here, but Periscope, Product Hunt, Medium, Twitch, it really kind of runs the gamut who we work with. And one of the cool things about being on the solutions engineering team at Algolia is we get to work with lots and lots of different clients, but that means there's lots and lots of different use cases that are getting more and more complex. So what I really wanted to delve in today is some of the tricks of the trade that I've learned to help make implementation and integration go a little bit faster and be a little bit more efficient. So in terms of how you actually implement Algolia, we are an API, so obviously we're a technical solution. We like to boil it down to a 3-step process. That is, the first step being indexing your data to us. That means actually pushing your data to Algolia servers, and then configuring the search engine. Again, you can configure this either via a dashboard that we provide or the API client itself. And then the third step being building the actual front-end user interface. So what does search look like to users that land on your website? So as solutions engineers, we like to say that our goal is to provide our clients with the best search implementation possible. But what does best mean? There's so many different prongs you can come at this from. So best might be user experience is really kick-ass. It's easy to use, the UI is pretty, et cetera, et cetera. The relevancy, so the results that users are seeing make sense and are applicable to them. The performance, is it fast? Is it speedy? Or when people type, are they seeing the results coming up as they're typing? And so on and so on. So what we like to call the triad, I guess, the pyramid of how we approach this problem is it really comes from two sides, right? There's the UX part of it, so that is the part where we provide designs or wireframes or demos. There's also the engineering side of it, so that is answering technical questions, providing both front-end and back-end guidance. But the problem is, even if we provide the best demo or even if we provide the best answer to the technical question, we need to make sure that the way we're communicating it to the customer is meaningful. Is it impactful to them? Can they actually understand what we've told them, what we provided for them? And can they churn and then use that for their own implementation? So another interesting thing about Algolia is we do have such a wide range of verticals. So we have SaaS, e-commerce, media, and that means each of the use cases we're seeing is its own thing. It's different. It's going to come with its own challenges. And this is something we always have to keep in the back of the mind as we're going through the implementation process. So we came up with a high-level customer success plan to ensure that as we're moving prospects and clients through the initial implementation phase, they're going to see where Algolia can provide value. So that's our high-level goal. How can we show them how our product can be meaningful and impactful and provide them an end ROI? So how do we do this? We guide them through a miniature implementation phase. This can be 2 weeks, it can be a month, depending on their internal resource they have available. But the idea is that it's a segment of a phase that can be easily be compacted and scoped out. The end result is a deliverable that is an A/B test ready working POC. This is something that can be put into production. It might just be on a certain country, it might just be for a certain percentage of traffic, but it's something that's ready to go and ready to start proving value. Okay, so getting more into the nitty-gritty. What does this actually mean from the details perspective? So the first step, obviously, is coming up with a timeline. We work with the client directly, we identify an end goal date that makes sense for their internal resources available, and then we work backwards to identify major milestones that we feel they're going to need to hit to reach that end goal. In terms of communication, it's really up to what works best for them. So with some clients, I've got a Slack channel. Other clients, I have weekly check-in meetings. It might just be an old school email thread. It really depends about being open to what's going to work best for their team and makes the most sense for keeping in contact. Another thing we've also implemented are something we call Milestone workshops. And these are deeper dives into certain aspects of the product as we work through the process. So the idea is, as they're getting ready to start another phase, we help frame this conversation and help them understand what the implementation at this level is actually going to look like. So the idea is that we're taking this larger project, scoping it down, taking a chunk that's bite-sized, that's easy to digest, walking them through it, and helping them answer any questions that they have. The idea is we're providing them with the tools they need to be successful at each point in the game. Another thing I wanted to mention, speaking of tools, is that we've also developed some tools on our end as SEs, so leveraging sort of our engineering capabilities to further help make the implementation cycle more efficient. So for example, we built an internal tool. We actually call it SC Tools. It's just a GitHub repo. And the idea is that it's a command line interface that helps us run diagnostics information on certain indices. We noticed there was a lot of work that each of us was doing on our own. We'd each written different scripts that were kind of cobbled together. We said, hey, why not put this in a centralized place, collaborate on this, and make this a real tool? In terms of externally facing tools, we built something, just for example, called a side-by-side comparison tool. And this is actually just a UI that lets our clients compare two different indices side by side, and then they can test problem queries and determine which index has a better relevancy setting. So this, again, is just a different tool allowing customers to iterate as they move through this cycle. So to take an even deeper dive and to provide some more concrete examples of actions that SEs take, the first step, as I mentioned earlier in the implementation process, is really focused on data. So in the Algolia world, indexing data is one of the primary concerns we have. We need to make sure that the data is structured in an appropriate way, it's formatted, it's optimized. So the SE can take many concrete actions here. It might be offering format suggestions. Sometimes we write scripts to update the data or make suggestions. Sometimes we'll review for optimizations. We'll provide technical debugging. It really runs the gamut of what sort of help we provide here. As an example, maybe a few weeks ago, I had a client who was working on building us to use this as a search for their documentation that was all written in Markdown. So I took the first step and I built a script to parse that Markdown, and then I gave that to him and he was able to iterate on that. But that saved a good couple weeks on their end, as he wasn't as back-end technically competent, and he was able to iterate, but it was hard for him to understand where to get started. So the second step in the Algolia process is that relevancy configuration. So this is fine-tuning ranking and relevancy settings related to the engine. So this is another spot where what SEs do really runs the gamut. So everything from identifying problem queries, debugging relevancy issues, setting up that tool I discussed earlier, providing suggestions in terms of fine-tuning. Again, it really changes based on the client. But the main idea here is that in each of these times, what we're doing is helping them iterate faster. So in the case of that side-by-side comparison tool, by setting up, they can quickly determine which relevancy makes the most sense for them, and they can move forward with that choice. So the final step is building the actual user interface. As an SE, we might create designs, we might create wireframes, we might actually build out a full-fledged demo. It might be troubleshooting JavaScript questions. Again, this is a case where an SE can step in and really help the process go smoother. I'm thinking about a case for a client a few weeks ago. I actually did step in and I built some of the user interface for them, and that helped them get to the launch they needed to get to. So the one overarching theme here really is that what we're doing depends on the client. It depends on the use case. So even though we have this, what seems like sort of a rigid set schedule in place, it really kind of comes down to this quote. There's this guy, Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, and he has this quote that says, "No battle plan survives contact with the enemy." So really what I want to drive home is it's about flexibility, right? So what is going to make the most sense? What is going to provide the most value to the client in terms of the hand-holding and the help they need? Always be considering the context. So, which internal resources do they have available? If they have a lot of back-end guys, they're probably going to need help with the front-end user interface. If they have a lot of designers, they're probably going to need help with data formatting. Consider the context of the KPIs they've identified. If they're really focused on conversion rates, there's no need to be helping them with, the other side of the coin. So again, flexibility above all. Thank you.